Until dawn, game of death for friends Jake, Emma, Leah, and Theo had been hiking since morning on a deserted mountain trail in America. Evening was setting in, and they found the path confusing. Just then, Jake spotted a sign. He realized they had taken the wrong route, because the sign displayed the name of another valley that wasn't part of their hiking trail. It was getting dark, and going back was no longer safe. Jake remembered how the locals had told him. Near a similar sign, there was a visitor center. He urged everyone to follow him, and soon they spotted the visitor center. They decided that as soon as morning arrived, they would leave from there so they could safely head back in the daylight. As they approached the visitor center building, suddenly the clouds turned dark and it began to rain. They quickly moved inside the building. As soon as they entered, the rain outside intensified and the sounds of thunder increased in the sky. They locked the door from inside and placed their bags and belongings next to the door. Jake used some nearby scraps of paper and old furniture to light the fireplace, and they sat down to wait for the night to pass. At that time, it was about 6:45 p.m. Aurelia felt a strange anxiety inside that visitor center. Just then, Jake laughingly told him that when he spoke to a local man, he said that this visitor center was considered haunted. He said that anyone who comes here never returns. A few months ago, a girl named Malini came there. She never returned from the first visit. As Jake was making fun of the locals' superstitious remark, suddenly the windows and doors began to open by themselves. A strong gust of wind blew, causing all the light bulbs inside the building to burst, and the fire in the fireplace extinguished itself. Outside, heavy snow began to fall. The weather suddenly turned very cold. Somehow, they managed to close the door again, reignite the fireplace, and lit a lot of candles to bring light back to the building. That's when Theo realized that Emma was not there. Everyone started searching for Hema inside and outside, but they couldn't find any trace of her. Theo was in the main hall when suddenly he heard a noise coming from outside. He thought it might be Emma and followed the sound when he saw something like a human in the snow. He shouted Emma's name, but when he got closer, he froze in fear because that person's face looked exactly like Theo's. It was an identical face, but with dark holes under the eyes, and the skin was peeling off as if someone had skinned him alive. He started shaking in fear, wandering through a corridor in the visitor center, looking for his mom. He looked at his hands in the fireplace's light and screamed because they had deep bite marks on them. It looked like a wild animal had attacked him. Just seeing those bite marks, he screamed loudly, and his voice brought Leah and Theo back. Before Theo and Jake could say anything, they saw Leah and became startled. It looked like a worm had entered Leah's cheek and was wriggling inside. Leah suddenly started feeling intense pain. As they rushed over to her, the worm began spreading inside Leah's skin, and her face turned completely black. They all got very scared and started running toward the door. But as they opened the door, Emma's dead body fell on them, and behind her, a terrifying masked man stood before the three of them. Everything became unclear, but before they could react, the man pulled out an axe from behind him and brutally killed all three. But then, after a while, their eyes opened again, not in a hospital, but right inside the visitor center, and Emma was there with them. All four sat near the fireplace. None of them understood what had just happened to them. Then they looked at the time, and it was still 6:45 p.m., the same time when everything had started. Without wasting any time, they began to run out of the visitor center. After a short distance, they felt they had finally escaped, but then trees in the forest converged, and they saw a huge monster in front of them. Before they could comprehend what was happening, the monster lunged at them and began to eat them. Screaming in pain, the four lost consciousness, but once again, their eyes opened in the visitor center, and the clock still showed 6:45 p.m. They realized they were trapped in a time loop, and to find a way out, they started searching the building. In the meantime, they found a room that displayed several photos of missing people, including their own photo, which had a date 8 days later. On the wall of that room, it was written, "If you want to live, you have to survive until dawn." Just then, someone hit them hard on the head with a baseball bat. When they opened their eyes again, they were back in the main hall of that visitor center. It was still 6:45 p.m. Before they could comprehend anything, they would die in a new way again. They kept trying to escape, but could not survive until morning. Then, 8 days later, a news report came out stating that 4 people named Jake, Theo, Emma, and Aurelio were missing. These people could not escape the visitor center alive. But what about Clover and her friends? Did they manage to escape alive from here? Clover came to that visitor center looking for her missing sister, Malini. Will Clover and her friends survive until morning in this valley?